So do you have an intro? This is the Armada podcast.
Well, we got to, because you motherfuckers haven't listened to anything, so we've got a whole intro song that plays that I had to cut from like the Clone Wars and Empire Strikes Back. So it like cuts in and it says "Brace for Impact," which took fucking forever to find that line.
Target, maximum firepower. Brace for impact.
Anyway, welcome to the Brace for Impact podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the new hosts we got, and we're going to talk about the neutral upgrade cards in this new update to Armada. The last, quote-unquote, update to Armada. And so our previous host, Luke, he had to move. He moved to Oregon, which is sad. So it took a while.
Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon. Great. But it took a while to kind of get my equipment updated because we pretty much were doing everything on our phones, which is obnoxious. If you haven't tried it, don't. Just get a fucking camera. And hopefully we'll be able to do more content and battle reports because now I have an actual camera to do all that shit on and I don't have to use my phone. But I got a couple guys from our local scene. We got Bernie and Chris over here who've agreed to do the podcast, maybe some battle reports. And so we'll start with Bernie. What the fuck is up, dude?
Hello, I am Bernie. On Discord, I am Bernie. On everything, I am Bernie. I sometimes go as Big Papa Palpatine because screw it. Put some Steiner math in there and let's go.
Yeah, your Discord icon is fucking the Giga Chad Palpatine with the sunglasses on. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah. So I've been playing Armada since about 2017, back somewhere between Sloan and Sato, I think. Probably. Back when you can actually get Armada stuff at Barnes & Noble when they tried to sell all that off when they couldn't get it sold at all. So it was super cheap.
Do you remember that fucking crazy fire sale of victories at Barnes & Noble when they were selling victories for like $15?
Literally everything was on sale. The MC80s were on sale. The Rogue packs were on sale. I remember going around from Barnes & Noble to Barnes & Noble, seeing what they had just to grab whatever was available.
Yeah, it was insane. I think I have like 5 victories now, and 4 of them I got from that Barnes & Noble sale back then.
Oh, same. I have 5 victories, none of them with an antenna.
I still have a couple with the antennas.
Yeah, mine failed.
Their natural state.
Yeah, their natural state is to have the broken antennas off.
And here's the thing that pisses me off about that is I have never flown half of those victories, and still somehow they have fallen off. So however you guys at Fantasy Flight engineered that, bad on you. Shame on you.
Yeah, you can just have them on display and their little antennas will break off.
Legitimately, they just move from shelf to shelf and they break.
Yeah. So you've been playing what since 2017? You said 2016, 17.
That's my guess.
Somewhere around there. So obviously, Armada is not a video game; it's a tabletop, game. But with every game, you kind of stop and then you go on to the next thing. But like, what is it about Armada that it's just let's go again every week that keeps you coming back?
So it's a really good time right now to explain that because you have most of the old FFG guys trying to get into a new Star Trek game and push that out. And as much as I love the way that they designed Star Wars Armada, which is one of the reasons why it's so easy to get into and stay with, the Star Wars part of it is just the hook. So we all have some nostalgia for Star Wars. Me, I remember watching it with my dad. Everyone has this we used to watch it through our family, or I've watched this when I was a kid. So you've got the nostalgia, you've got a very solid rule set, you've got a lot of replayability in it, and you have a lot of good strategy, not only in the game, but in the list building. So it's really sad that this game has basically come off the shelf, but the way that it was built, the way that it was maintained, beautiful game.
Yeah, I think as far as tabletop games go, it's got to be one of the has the tightest rule set out of all of them. Like everything is extremely clear, and there's a lot of clarity, even on some of the more niche interactions. You kind of can figure out what the absolute answer is very quickly.
And to be fair, Armada does have a kind of steep learning curve. There's a lot of things going on, and yeah, you can figure it out pretty quickly, the basics of it. But all the nuances, it really does take you a while. I wouldn't have considered myself a good player until maybe 3 years in, because
Mhm.
as you're starting to learn, you're starting to figure out, okay, I really want to fly ships I love, which is a good start. But you start to throw in, here's all my upgrades. I want to make this thing the beefiest thing. And eventually, over time, you start to figure out that no, I really want to hone in on what my list is and really optimize that. And so, over time, I think is when people really start to go and get really good at this game, though. I would say, out of all the people in our Orlando group that have been playing this game, Chris is probably the fastest I've seen rise to a good player.
Previous experience though, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, I would say Armada is one of the most difficult games as far as getting the win. Like you can learn it in a few months and kind of know everything that can happen, but like to get that win, it can take a few years sometimes.
And part of it is you get really super aggressive, or you really try and go all in on a strategy. And sometimes the best play is to figure out not only where you're going to jump on your opponent, but also where you're going to be after you make that jump. And that's the hardest step, I feel like, in this game.
Yeah. For me, it was the most difficult to stop being aggressive. When I started getting to the point where I could say, hey, in this step, I have to choose not to have an attack for next round and pull back so that I can be in a better position for like rounds 5 and 6. And then I started getting better because before I was like fucking full bore. I'm like, if I'm not attacking on round 2, I might as well go put my fucking head in the toilet.
That gets into the whole Armada is a game of distances, right? So
Mm.
you're trying to just be on the very edge of that range band, whatever that winds up being for the fleet you're going against. And a lot of it is being able to vary up what you're doing so that you can match what your opponent's list is. And that gets into really advanced tactics, which probably we want to leave off for now.
Yeah,
At least,
Yeah.
at least for an intro.
that's
Yeah.
there's so many combinations there, and getting good at that requires you to get experience with a lot of them. So it gets really, really complicated really fast.
Yeah. So Bernie, we talked about what keeps you playing, but like personally, what is your absolute favorite thing about Armada? Either gameplay wise or like just how it looks on the table. What is it?
Ooh, it does look very good on the table. And that's something we're going to have to deal with in the future is how we keep things on the table. And it's one of the things that we're struggling with in Orlando is how are we going to keep players supplied? When Armada was announced as no longer supported, not even just not in development, but just completely off the shelves, we still had a bunch of new players coming in, and that's really the thing that's going to be the hardest. But there's a lot of good people online devoting their time to putting out models that everyone can use, and I think that's really going to keep the game alive. Is people devoting their time, being the heroes, and really getting some good-looking ships on the table. Because
Yeah.
That's the way we move forward, and that's the way we bring in new players is not so much the cards on the table, but the models and the things that we need to support our game.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of the things I've had the most frustration with in the last several months because I've, in recent history, like the last 5 or so years, I've enjoyed playing at a store that has Armada in stock on the shelves and having people come in and be like, "Oh shit, what's this fucking game? Like this is awesome. I love Star Wars." And then I just point to the shelf over there. I watch them like as I'm playing, and then like 5, 10 minutes later, they're walking off with like 3 or 4 Armada products in their hands, 4 set and all. But like now, whenever people come up to me and they're like, "How do I get into this game?" I just have to fucking like shrug and be like, I mean, troll eBay and see what you can do.
And even if you don't, you kind of softball it, they'll get it from someone else that, oh, that game's discontinued. And as soon as they hit that, they're like, oh, I guess I should look
It's
elsewhere.
the worst. Whenever I don't know what it is about. Well, I know what it is. It's when you're playing a discontinued game, you're essentially given a promise of the game is stale. And for many games, that's true. The game will continue to evolve to a certain point, and when it's discontinued, it's essentially been deemed like not redeemable at that point. So there's no reason to play that game because whatever version of that game that exists at the end of its life kind of is either shit or it's this convoluted mess or it's something like X-Wing Wave 14 where it's just like the power levels are ridiculous and it's impossible to analyze anything. But for Armada, it's probably one of the most balanced games that exist that you can play on the tabletop.
And it's the most rewarding, I would say, at least from the games that I played. And that kind of gets into some of the things that we've been seeing on how does this game continue. And in my opinion, honestly, the way this game continues and continues to evolve and be interesting is just their points rebalance. And that kind of gets into one of the things we'll talk about later. But this game can move forward with the cards as is. You do not have to do a lot with this game in the next couple of years. And I think that's a misunderstanding that is in the community that we need to kind of squash and go. Our focus really needs to be how do we move forward and continue this game? It's a very good game.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, before we fucking started, I hammered like a half a pint of whiskey. So it's gonna kick in right when we get to the upgrade card changes.
Oh, I got my Moscow Mule right beside me, buddy. I'm right with you.
Thank God, I'm ready to go off on this shit. I have a lot of opinions about this. And if you haven't listened before, this is the podcast of strong opinions. So buckle up, Buttercup.
And as you can tell, we're not pulling any punches. We're telling you exactly what sort of state of mind we're in, and we're going to tell you like it is, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. We're gonna have a whole fucking podcast that is dedicated just to AMG. We're gonna give AMG their due and give them a nice review, but that's not this.
Yeah.
So we'll do it then. Anyway, Chris,
Yeah, I'm here.
what the fuck is up?
Oh, it's a pretty good day. How's it going?
It's going pretty fucking good. So, what you started playing like what a year ago, a year and a half ago?
Basically, I started coming out to the local game shop at the beginning of, or really the end of 2023, beginning 2024. So I got in at an awesome time to just start and then have the game discontinued a couple months later.
I know, right? Fucking nightmare. I couldn't imagine. I was like your first actual like tournament. Was that our store championship in January?
Yeah, I literally had like one time being out at the store, like around Christmas time. Just Bernie was there, so I got a match in. That was fun. And then like a week or two later was the store tournament, and I'm just like, I just started, but I want to play more, so let's just do this. And that was good.
So can I say something? Because
Sure.
this is how I knew you were going to be a good player. Is we were playing around Christmas time, and I was playing a goofy list. I think it was one of my Dodon lists that I was playing with at the time, but I
Yeah,
could tell you were going to be a good player by how caged you were. And that's one of the things for newer players, not that we have many now, but being able to understand, let your opponent come to you, don't make unforced errors. You are very much the king of do not make unforced errors.
yeah, and
Make sure your opponent is playing into your strategy.
which can be aggressive at times too. Um, but it just comes from, well, I mean, I'd played other war games and stuff like this before, and I really liked different various kind of dogfighting games. And had been doing like MechWar Online for a little bit, so I picked up a few tricks here and there for flying and how to engage and Alpha Strike. Got Alpha Strike.
I agree with that, but I gotta say, in I think for someone who had like their first year of Armada, the amount of games that you got in was fucking outrageous. For like someone just getting to Armada, like this your first year you played more games in I think my first like 3 years of playing Armada.
Yeah, I totally got into it.
Like you just went absolutely batshit crazy. Like I would play with you one Friday, and then a couple Fridays later, I'm like, oh, how many games you played? And you're like, oh yeah, on TTS I got 30 games in. I'm like,
It was
what?
definitely 30. Yeah, I'll go with that.
Like what the fuck? Like how can you play that many games, man? It's fucking insane.
Yeah, I'll really get into games sometimes, and honestly, it's in a way comparing it to like a video game or something. It kind of doesn't feel like too many, but each game takes so much time that it does add up.
Yeah, it's a huge time investment, especially like on TTS where like you have to listen. I do not like TTS. I hate playing fucking games on Tabletop Simulator. I get for some people it's their only option,
Yeah, that's the trick.
but I'd rather play anything else on the computer.
Yeah, yeah, it's really TTS is more of a what you got to do sometimes in certain things. It's not the preferred method if you can help it.
Nah, yeah. And I think we just have such an availability of people playing Armada like at our local scene, which is fucking Orlando, that I don't feel the need to get my fix on TTS.
I just had too many lists. I had too many lists to try out, and it's like I got to get some more games in because I got to try these things out. So that kind of drove some of that.
But I mean, for newer players like you who are like getting into the game, like you slingshotted yourself forward as far as skill and just knowledge of the game by doing that.
Yeah, and the one thing that actually is really good about TTS or Vassal that I would recommend any kind of newer ish players is I would go in and do like deployment practice and maybe like the first couple moves just to see how things would fly around. Because otherwise, it's like, what the hell is distance 3 versus distance 4, or the different speeds? That doesn't mean anything
Hmm.
when you start.
Yeah, deployment is definitely the one thing that will make or break your game strategy. Like you can have anything in your mind when you look at the board and you look at your opponent's fleet, but like if you deploy wrong, like you can absolutely lose the game before round 1.
Oh yeah, big time.
So now that everything is done, at least at 2025, if anyone in the future is listening to this, what keeps you playing even though you know there's likely not going to be very many changes in the future?
Well, kind of because I'm new and I invested so much in it, and I really love the game. But
Yeah.
to go into a little more detail, again, I really like flying, any sort of like dogfighting or even like naval combat stuff. And Armada rolls all that together on kind of a tactical and strategic level. Because when I would play dogfighting games where it was like a more like a flight simulator, um, you have to do the maneuvering for your craft. But I also try to really pay attention to what is everything surrounding me, what's the kind of strategic side of it. When am I gonna turn in and try to catch an enemy or support, one of my allies or something? And that strategic aspect really comes out in the squad play for Armada with how you engage things. I really like how that's handled from gameplay perspective. And then in terms of just flying things, how you move your ships around kind of captures that nice, like you have some momentum, but you're still able to turn a certain amount. They're not going to be as maneuverable as like an X-wing game or something, but you still get that sort of feel of flying something that just really appeals to me.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, that's the main thing, really. Other than that, it is a really solid game. Like the games that hook me are ones that have really good game mechanics, and Bernie and you already mentioned it. But yeah, the core gameplay mechanics for Armada are just really good. Um, and defense tokens, defense tokens, I love them.
Oh my god, it's my favorite thing because I was playing X-wing for years because Armada wasn't out at that time. But like, holy shit, every game wants to do defense dice, every fucking
Yeah,
game. But please, just let me have an effect that I don't have to roll a fucking dice for, especially when I'm defending. Oh my god.
So the thing that makes a very good game is decisions. I want to make decisions with my fleet, and I want my fleet to be flexible to support my decisions. But my opponent wants to limit my decisions. So to me, it's all about decisions. If we're allowing more people to make more decisions on the mechanics, it's a much better game. And the mechanics should support that. When you start bringing in variability, that's when it's not as much a strategy game, which is what most of us are attracted to about this game. It's a lot of strategy. It's a lot of forcing decisions.
Yeah, I love
exactly.
that of spending a defense token at a certain time and being like, this is my choice. It's not like I've rolled something and the gods decided my X-Wing gets blown out of the fucking sky. It's like I kind of wanted to have something because I need it for a strategic purpose in the future. And I feel like I get that a lot with Armada, especially with, cards like ECM, defense tokens, everything.
And the good thing about the dice is Armada's providing a lot of flexibility, and I want to spend my points on dice fixing. I want to spend my points on things that are taking away the randomness. So the good thing about Armada is how much resources do you want to spend into making decisions, into forcing what you want to happen? Otherwise, you're basically at the whim of your dice. You can fly all the ships naked, you really can. And honestly, I would recommend for newer players or people who are struggling to go and be conservative on your upgrades, but that does tend to lean into the I'm now not making decisions. But even with that, you can still make some decisions. And that is part of the fun in Armada is, do I want to risk it? Do I want that MC30 to go and roll all this dice into me? And am I going to actually risk a really ridiculous roll? Because it will happen. And the time that happens is the time that your game is over. So you gotta.
That's one of my favorite fucking things to do when I'm watching players play and they have ordnance experts and they only roll one blank black dice. And I'm like, listen, you have to pick up the hit. That single hit die on the black, you have to actually roll that with the blank black die. You're like, every time, please. Just risk it.
And that's part of the decision making. I love the gambler aspect of it. Is I'm going to go for broke, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. The more you can make someone interact with the game, the more you can make someone decide things, that's more fun because I'm influencing the game more. And that's really all you want out of a good game is influence in your decisions in the outcome.
I think that's the best way to put it. Of like, the more you make the player interact with the game, you actually are just playing the game more, and that's what makes it good. So, Chris, back to you.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning the core rules and like how ironed out they are, how good that is in a tabletop game. But is that your absolute favorite aspect of Armada? Is that just bar none, just how clear and precise everything is?
I mean, that's just to me, that's a sort of like you call bare minimum for it to be a game that I'm going to keep playing regularly. It has to have the really solid game mechanics. But favorite thing again, kind of just goes back to uh, flying the ships, the way ship movement is implemented, and then how squads and engagement is handled. Just just the flying aspect of it, but in a sense that has tactics and strategy. I like how it blends all that together. Gets me my
Yeah,
flying fix.
the mix between the tactics and strategy, I think, is the best. All right, so like we were saying at the start, this is unfortunately or fortunately the last Atomic Mass Games update to Armada. And I don't know about you guys, but I think I have mixed opinions about it because what I've seen, my initial thoughts are, it's pretty good.
Yeah, the update overall seems fairly solid. Obviously, we're going to talk through the individual stuff, but nothing feels like it horribly broke. And I'm actually making slightly different list building decisions now. So, overall, thumbs up.
So, do you want to discuss the general AMG stewardship of the game, or do you want to just discuss the
We're gonna have our own AMG specific episode for what do we think about their stewardship of the game. But I mean, for this, my mixed opinions are this: the actual implementation, what they did change, I feel is good. But there's a lot of things that I saw when it came out that continues this train of thought where I am seeing that AMG actually did fuck all themselves and they're just taking shit from other, you know, developers, whether they're FFG's, notes that they've left behind in the past, or they've talked to a previous developer and just cobbled together Anakin Commander and thrown it out without any regard. Or in this instance, I don't know if it's 100% true, but from what I've seen, it seems like they just outsourced it to like a fucking fan group and just took whatever they said. Maybe they looked over it once and said, fuck it. They figured it out and we'll just publish it.
so yes, and without getting into details and getting anyone involved, that very much seems to be the case.
Which is like, how fucking lazy can you be that you can't do it your goddamn self?
Okay, separating AMG aside, and we can dedicate an episode to that, and I have a very specific. So I will say, I will preface it and let people know I have a very strong opinion against two individuals. And from what I have heard from multiple sources, do not care much for them. But
Yeah.
I have a personal experience with some of their other staff, and I am very, very thankful for the way that they reached out to me. That's for a different episode, but just letting everyone know. Because god damn it, the two people that I know from multiple sources, why did you even care? So, leaving that alone in those two shitbags,
Let's go on to the neutral upgrade cards.
Yeah.
Because we're going to break it up. We're going to do the neutral upgrade cards first, and then we'll do Rebel Empire and Separatists and Republic in their own little sections. So first up, we have Repair Cruise. Went from 4 points to 3. Now, Repair Cruise is one of the fleet support upgrades. Engineering, instead of spending engineering points, you can discard 1 damage card from 1 friendly ship at distance 1 to 2. Now it's 3 points.
So I love Repair Cruise. I used it in the list that got me a ticket to Worlds. And if you watch Ion Radio, you can see the list that was using it.
Really?
It's a good card in that, yeah. So I had went to Worlds and some things happened and I had to drop out. And credit to those guys, they reached out to me and the personal things that I had to do. They I love those guys. I've never met them, but they were very, very accommodating to me. Or I shouldn't say accommodating, but I
Understanding, maybe?
not you're not even understanding is I had some personal things going on and they don't know me. And those guys reach out to me and love them even though I never met them. So thank you to Ion Radio, to Ken, to everybody there. Thank you, honestly. And getting back to the topic, why I love Repair Cruise is it's flexible. So if you've got a ship that you do, and this is one of the things that people tend to do, is if I'm going to sink my points into a ship, I want to make sure it lives. And I've got all these Gazantes and I can comsnet things into it, but Repair Cruise directly impacts that ship's survivability in a way that the token will not. So I love it. And there's also a little bit of flexibility in that if you take Station Assault, you can repair the station. And it's a really cool wrinkle. And I love that about it. It's a little overcosted, or at least it was. I believe it's where it should be. And I think it has a place.
Yeah, 3 points is fine.
You're the only person I've seen so far crazy enough to use it to heal stations, but that you've been showing me some tricks.
Bernie has got to be the most outlandish, out of his goddamn mind list builder. Like, if we were ranking on like scale of 1 to 10 of fleet composition, Bernie's like a fucking 10 out of 10. The craziest mad scientist list you'll ever goddamn fucking see. But yes,
Oh, thank you.
that kind of person will use Repair Cruise with the specific intent to use it on the station assault objective. I think it's okay. It's fine. Using it for crits is great, and I think its value is going to go up inherently because of a lot of the changes that happened with this new update. Because I think crits are going to be in a different kind of threat level than they used to be.
You also have to think about in what is your extra activation getting you. So you're not getting firepower. Throw that out the window. But if I can get some cards off of my ship, maybe that makes the extra activation a little bit more meaningful.
Yeah.
The only real kind of limitation on it is its distance limitation, and I think that's why a lot of times I've really only seen it with a Superstar Destroyer. So you just have to be mindful when you're flying it. It's not range 5 like a lot of other support things, but definitely can come in handy.
I think even like distance 3 would be good. But like I don't know. I just hate distance 2. But again, you're always kind of guppying your little Gazantes and GR75s around your large ships anyway. But I think that's where this card's place is. Like, you don't want this in an MSU fleet. You've got an ISD, you've got a Starhawk maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to take the crits off, or even just every round card, 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 easy. Just make sure it's in range, and it'll do its job.
Yeah. I am kind of curious if I don't really have much of a feel for dropping 1 point, really changing it that much. It really just gives you more points for the big ship that you're putting odd into.
Yeah, 1 point is like, eh. I would have preferred like a 1 point change and maybe an effect change, but it's fine. 1 point, we'll take it. We'll move on. Slicer tools. I think this is an actual 5-star positive change to slicer tools. So now it can raid in addition to changing an enemy ship command dial and no longer starts exhausted.
Which opens up a lot more combos.
Yeah. The now it starting exhausted, it doesn't sound that big a deal because you can round one bank a token or you can comms net a token. It doesn't sound that big a deal, but not being able to do an actual command or actually store a command token on round one is significant. It is one of those things that affects your game.
So here's the thing: if you're taking this, you're creating a Rube Goldberg machine. So if you want to put another level to it, you're just making it harder. And I get it. Slicer tools was a thing, and that's why the Thrawn 2 ship came into existence to get around it. But I like this a lot. I like getting rid of the turn one because honestly, what were you doing on turn one anyway? So why
Yeah.
was that a restriction? And I love the ability to give a raid because there are so many commanders and abilities now that work off that now that can actually play. And now you're creating new combos, new things that can happen, like Chris said. And that my trenchless right now takes advantage of it. And I love that.
Yeah, and it's another way. Oh, now I have another source of raid for like maybe you're playing a TF 1726 list. All right, now you can slicer tools and add a raid. Or any MSU fleet you would go against, slicer tools does fuck all. Now it can actually participate in some way, even a little bit, because raid tokens honestly kind of shit if you can't spend them or cash them in for some other effect. But at least it's something. It's not 7 points of just, well, all your ships have 1 or 2 command, so I guess I'll fly this GR75 away.
Yeah, and that I think that's what we're going to get into in Armada is eventually moving forward as the committee stewards the game is let's make small corrections, small points adjustments. This one had a little bit of text adjustment, but let's see where we can get things to make them not optimal, but make sure that everyone is considering them during list building.
Yeah, you have to at least be able to look at a card and say, no, I can take that, but just not for what I'm trying to do right now. I'll maybe make a different fleet built around that. But there are so many cards that you look at and you're like, oh, when did this come out? Was this like a core set card? Oh shit, it's fucking redundant shields. Oh, actually, who would ever take this? Actually, it's better to not take this at all.
Right. And I think there's always going to be at least some of that because trying to bring everything the perfect balance is probably pretty much impossible. But as long as there's like you can look at a certain subcategory and, you know, see a reason to bring the stuff like you're saying, Chandler,
Yeah.
that's still good enough. And maybe there's a couple that'll be dead cards. We'll get Izard, someone will start bringing that to look at their phone commands dials. Oh yeah.
And
She's got to do fucking something else.
I think we need to be careful because I understand everyone wants to make new cards, new text adjustments, new everything, but guys, let's start with the points adjustment. You would be
Yeah.
amazed how much legs you can get out of this game with just a points adjustment. And let's
Well, yeah, like point. A lot of these cards don't have very many changes. It's just points, and I'm like, perfect. Let's go.
but on the opposite side of that is let's not throw all the points adjustments at once.
Yeah.
because as you throw more changes into a game, you do not know the unintended consequences. So I will say, whoever worked on this, good job. It was just the right amount of cards, just the right amount of adjustments. You're giving new options into the game as a template for the future now that AMG has decided that they no longer want to steward the game. This is the template that we want to use moving forward.
And to that point, fucking losers. Oh my god. The only fucking spaceship tabletop game, you've cornered the market, and you're just like, nah. Fucking losers. Whatever. Anyway, ion cannons. High capacity ion
Yep.
turbines. One of my favorite cards. 8 points to 6. I don't like this change.
I love it because how many times you saw it?
I love high capacity ion turbines specifically because it's expensive. And they ruined the one thing I like about it. I like putting, one blue die on the sides, and I put it on a points fortress platform, and it becomes more expensive.
So you could just still take heavy ion emplacements, and that's like 9 points. If you just want an expensive ion.
I can. I do, but I like having extra dice. Extra dice I love, especially blue. And some ships, they just do not have enough blue dice on some arcs. Like ISD Kuwats. This was perfect on ISD Kuwats, especially if you wanted to make them points fortresses.
More dice is always nice. This one's been weird, and I guess Rapid Reload's another one that.
Funny story, more dice is always nice is tattooed on my lower back. So it's funny.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's so weird. I have a butterfly.
Oh, well. You should have gotten the memo. I think it's fine. It's cheaper. You could probably stand to put it on medium ships now, because before it was way too expensive for mediums. I would still not put it on smalls or anything like that, but it's fine. It's still a modification, so I guess that kind of compensates for it being ass for being a modification for some reason.
The only thing I will say is now that it's 6, and now that you're getting a reduction on the Donna's Pride, maybe consider it for a CR90B. I wouldn't, because that's now putting 6 points on something that you're probably going to have die. But if you're very good at navigating it and putting it on the edge of medium range, that might be something you want to consider.
And that brings us to our next card, which I disagree with you. I think if you're taking Dodonna's Pride, you want to take leading shots if you're going to take anything.
Leading shots on Dodonna's Pride. That's interesting.
Yeah.
This to me is a mainstay for the MC-75 armored cruiser, because you got blue dice on every single attack, and it really needs dice fixing. But then you got defenses.
Yeah, and 1 point. 1 point is fine, but especially for cards like Dodonna's Pride, you just want the crit. You just want the face up.
Yeah.
So take that high capacity ion turbine.
Yeah.
Reroll them. It's fine.
It's debatable.
But I think now it's debatable. Before it absolutely was
not. Honestly, we can get to it, but for the Rebels, I think there's a way better option for Dodonna's Pride now, which is melee.
Oh yeah, fucking melee. You get an absolute fucking melee. Listen, you can put melee on an area of the board that is not a fucking obstacle. I hope someone told you this.
Who told you that?
Yeah, but
okay. On to the next ion upgrade. We got NK7s. 10 points down to 6. One of the biggest points changes in the entire fucking update.
I kind of needed it.
I love this now. And part of the reason why I love it is Palpatine. And now you can, and this isn't my creation. There's plenty of people who have posted this, is you can get Intel Officer, NK7s, Palpatine, and goodbye defense tokens. It's
Is that all the
so
same
good.
fucking window?
Oh yeah. Well, not the same window, but essentially what you're going to do is Palpatine will declare that this token is gone for good. Intel
Oh, that's
officer,
right.
when you roll,
Picks a different
will
one.
say this one's gone for good. And then whatever
And
other
then-
one you decide to use when you
Uh-huh.
go and spend all these things is gone for good.
Yeah, because Intel Officer, it's when you spend the defense token, and since
Yeah.
NK7 is apparently a critical effect, it happens after defense tokens are spent.
Yeah, and technically you can choose one of the ones that were already selected, but usually when you're selecting the other tokens, you're picking the ones they don't want to select anyway.
Yeah.
So you pretty much cover the board.
God damn.
Yep. The other thing too is multiple copies of it in a fleet, just to really add up on taking away tokens from a target. Does require you to coordinate a little bit, but can work. And now, I mean, again, if you're taking multiple copies, you're saving like 8 or 12 points potentially, which is a lot.
I think this is one of those changes that is also really
So-
good because NKs came out way, way before any of the evade changes. So I think it was point costed in a format where if you were at close range, like you could not use evade tokens at all. But now you can, and you can spend it for an additional dice effect. And so now it's like at 6 is probably pretty fucking good for what it can do now.
Yeah, and this kind of gets into the effectiveness of crits, right? Because and some of these changes, and we can get into ordnance probably next, is the easiest thing to switch over to is some of these effects have made crits less effective, and so now we need to adjust points and get them back into things.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. And speaking into effectiveness, let's talk about one of the most dogshit effective cards that exists. Overload Pulse. One of the core set cards. It sucks. I don't like it. Its timing is ass. Whenever you do get it off, your opponent just says, "Oh, I'll just spend all my defense tokens then."
Yeah.
It only works in combos. So it's, yeah.
And then it's like, just bring something else, and that combo is probably still going to go off. Unless it's like an SSD or a Starhawk. And it's like,
The biggest problem is really the fact that you think the first time you read it, it's going to be this amazing card until you recognize how the attack step works and when critical effects triggered. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
wait, they can spend all their tokens first.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So this card has one place, and I credit the our rim job guys for this one because again, this is my creation. This is one of theirs, at least from what I heard. Is you set up your radish ship, you drop your big ship, and then you profundity out your little ship, being a CR90B, and you go over low pulse, and
yeah, that's like the only place for it is CR90B.
and that's really it. And you could do it sometimes with a raider when you have what's the offensive retrofit? Capacitor discharge or whatever?
Yeah, disposable
Disposable
capacitors, yeah.
capacitors. Thank you. But that can play into it depending because basically what you're running into is a timing window.
Yeah.
Raditz works great because you're stuck into a timing window anyway. And sometimes if you can just get enough activations, you can get a raider to do the same exact thing. So that's probably the two places you want to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of Outer Rim Job, what the fuck, guys? When are you gonna tongue Mothma's butthole again? Get fucking with it. Moving on! PDIC. I hate this card. This is my least favorite card in the entire game.
It needed a change.
This is the worst fucking nightmare card. It needed a change, but like not this. This is not
Yeah.
enough.
This is
Stop. Just ban it. or change how it works fucking entirely.
So I'll be the contrarian in here is do not change the game too much. And again, and I'll say this multiple times to people stewarding the game moving forward, be very careful with balance. You do not want to change things drastically because you have no idea the unintended consequences. You are not a game developer. So when you go and choose things like I'm going to rework PDIC, you start with the points change. This is not a bad way to change it. The worst thing about PDIC is if everything has PDIC stapled to it, what the hell am I going to attack? Because if I have bombers or if I have close range ships, I have no option. At least if you make a 2-point increase and you're taking a bunch of ships, I at least have one ship I know I can actually hit. So let's start there and see how it goes, and then we can go and adjust points.
It does go back to your earlier point, though, about making decisions and that being good for a game. And PDIC, I'll never forget. I think the first time I went up against a more experienced player online, and I'd taken it for the first time, and they were just re-rolling dice, the bomber dice they threw against me without me like asking or saying anything. It was just weird because it's like, shouldn't that be me like calling out whether or not I want to use PDIC? But obviously, it makes sense. A blue die, you're gonna want it to re-roll it for the accuracy. That's always gonna be what you're gonna do. So there's not really actually a choice. It's just weird. A little less fun.
Yeah, those are both very nice, calm, measured analysis of PDIC. But I fucking hate it. I think it's the worst card. I think any effect that's always on is total dog shit. Put some fucking evade tokens on it. Put 2 fucking evade tokens on it, and that's how you trigger it. Then you have some fucking decisions, and I can decide whether or not I want to overload PDIC and make it turn off. Like, it being always on, even at 6 points, you get to re-roll 80 fucking dice in the game? Total horse shit. For 6 points? Get the fuck out of here.
I get it. Okay. So, separatists, if you have hyenas, good luck, might as well die.
Oh,
You
yeah.
might as well throw them off the fucking board.
Yeah.
Or put them to the edge and they're wasted.
I want to bring X-Wings. Same problem.
Same problem.
X-Wing, same problem.
But at least now, bring up the points. Let's see where the limit is. Go to 6, see what the landscape looks like. And if it's still bad, kick it to 8. Or start doing the things you're talking about, where you start reducing the amount of effects it has.
I would totally rework this card. Like, this is one of the, like, ever since it's come out, it's been the most egregious offender for lists. It's like, oh, PDIC, obviously. If you don't take it, it's like actually incorrect.
Oh, trust me. My list where it was the Kuat that had PDIC and not expert chill text, and the one that made the obstruction on the
Early
whole
warning
zone.
systems.
Early warning system. Thank you.
Yeah.
I abused the ever living fuck out of that.
Bernie, that was the closest. I played that
I know.
fucking fleet that you had. That was the closest I went to flipping the whole goddamn table in your face.
Oh,
holy
and
shit!
you should, but
Like, it's so annoying.
you need to be careful because you get into the Draven situation where you change a card so much that it becomes so ineffective that now you're like, well, I might as well make it 20 points. Yeah, well, the card is still dog shit. So good luck.
Yeah. It's like, do you want Draven at 20 points, or do you just want Dodonna?
And
it's like one of them is a good card, and the other is an actual handicap.
So there's a way you can make that Draven work at 20 points. It's just you're now very much pigeonholing yourself, which again gets to the point of I want to make decisions. I want my admiral to help me make decisions, or at least provide me more decisions. And that Draven is the absolute worst at that. So whoever decided that they needed to change it because they thought it was a negative player experience, no, figure it out. You're wrong.
I know that they were looking at that Draven and they were like, it's a negative play experience. We got to change it. You're a fucking pussy for changing
No,
it.
it was just
Honestly.
a bad take because when you look at it, the things that it was taking away were the Sloan Alpha strikes, the Yularen Alpha strikes, like all this stuff, and I'm like, great, good.
Yeah,
Alpha strikes from squadrons are one of the problems, and all the other effects it did to all the other commands weren't significant enough to justify the change.
I agree. Absolutely.
Again, this is the whole idea of when you make changes to cards, think about the impact. And in general, I think there's been a very poor job since stewardship has gone from FFG to AMG of figuring that out.
I agree. I just think it's because they have no fucking clue how to play the game.
How many people you think play Armada?
Yeah, at AMG,
Plus or minus
one who actually knows how the game operates, like how to go to round 6.
not a
One.
contractor, an actual employee.
No, but one.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I don't think it's that.
You don't even think one person at AMG can get to round 6 of Armada without fucking off and going to the fucking Applebee's?
They aren't going to Applebee's. They're going to go to YouTube and have a painting stream.
You're gonna piss me off with bringing this shit up. You know it. You fucking know that that's gonna piss me off. And that's why you fucking brought it up. And oh, God. Anyway, this is another card I disagree with. Rapid launch bays. Now I'm gonna say that I'm not disagreeing on any objective basis. This is my favorite card. And if you're a longtime fan of this show, you'll know every episode is sponsored by Rapid Launch Bays. That's how much I love this card. And they changed it. They changed my baby to not interact with Flight Commander, which is fair. That's a total dog shit strategy, and it's such bullshit when it happens to you. But now it can't do it anymore because it activates by discarding the card instead of requiring a squadron command, which is, I guess, reasonable.
I really wondered if there was any other reason other than just stopping its interaction with Flight Commander to do that, because it it gives you a little more flexibility, but then why would you need the flexibility? Because if you drop off squads, aren't you going to want to command them?
No, I do understand there is another reason to do it other than just the Flight Commander interaction. And it really is because the way Rapid Launch Bays used to be worded with the squadron command requirement was just confusing because you could place the squadrons up to your squad value, but you didn't have to activate them. But it was written kind of in a way where you're like, no, you actually do. But then in the FAQ, it's like, you kind of don't. You can just place them and then activate something else. But then it's like, you're using the squadron command. Like, why the fuck are you doing this? And really, at the end of that thought experiment is you're doing some nonsense with Yavaris. That's the only reason you would ever place them from rapid launch bays and not activate them.
Makes sense. But
now it's extremely clear.
But going back to the whole point of making decisions is if you want to try and do that and you want to deploy all your squadrons with rapid launch bays in my phase, now I have an opportunity to do something before Yavaris activates. So you haven't really screwed me over, and honestly, how many people were abusing this? So
I was.
Yeah, maybe, but
but it's also fine. Like, but it used to do that anyway. You didn't have to activate the squadrons you put with rapid launch bays. It was just built and structured in a way where it was like confusing if you were allowed to do that, but you still could. But now you just can't do I use Flight Commander and delay my squad activation and then move my ship and then use rapid launch bays at the end. Like, that's no longer an option.
yeah.
Which it's fair because that was such a bullshit fucking strategy. And my favorite thing was to put it on GR75s and go speed 3 with Quantum Storm, and like you cannot do anything to prevent that. Like I would 100% every single time I tried be able to put the B wings on target or Luke on target. Like you cannot interact with it at all.
Yeah, but then you're launching something way ahead of the rest of your ships. Or if you're not, then you had to have enough activations to delay it, which right now you don't have the whole strategic officer and all that stuff that made it broken to begin with. So I don't know. To
Yeah,
me, I don't feel like it was as necessary. I can understand it. I just don't feel it was necessary.
I don't think it was necessary either. It was one of my favorite combos, and now it's dead, and I'm sad. They fucked with my baby.
Yeah,
That's fair.
it's a weird change too. Other than just killing that combo, because still thinking about it, it's like if I want to use this in a way where I'm actually not going to use it for this having a squad command, just discarding and placing them, because that's now what you can do. What really benefits from that other than like
URS
slow
is the only
rogue
thing I can think.
bombers, maybe like fire sprays? I guess you could try doing
But if you're
something.
taking fire sprays and you have Sloan, like what the fuck are you doing? Like
I don't
fire,
know.
like one, like it's such a weird thing to do.
Yeah, it just seems weird. Unless you're just going to still use it with a squadron command. And then it just, again, you're using it the same way, you just don't get flight commander.
Yeah,
So, weird. Maybe a bit unnecessary of a change, but yeah. I need to play
I
with
think
this
it's
card more. That's what I'm really hearing here.
is a fucking way to play. Holy shit, it's so much fun. So reserve hanger decks, 3 to 4, probably necessary.
Yeah, kind of needed it. Got it.
It reduces
So
the
annoying.
spammability of like I would build lists where I would have 4 of these, and so now that it's kind of preventing the spammability, it's fine.
It
Reserve hanger is
definitely
amazing.
made a difference, at least for me, and having to redo some lists on Empire side where it's like you just can't really squeeze them in as easily at 4 points as three and get all the other
Yeah,
tech.
this is one of those like measured changes of 3 to 4 doesn't seem like a lot, but in this instance, like it really is for
So
reserve hanger decks.
this is one where I'm gonna have a problem because this seems like a nerf to Sloan and to Grievous.
Yep.
So if you really want, because really what it is I don't want to have Sloan overwhelm me, and Sloan's been a problem for a very long time. And Grievous, I can just move my ship off the board, bring it back. You have no say in what I just did, and I can activate things like the Recusant move shields card. Blanking on what it
Yeah,
is. But if you understand,
Gilded Ages.
yeah, thank you. But if you understand, it's like, oh, okay. Well, if those were the two commanders abusing it, why didn't you do something to those two commanders? Do I really care if a Z95 is going to be brought back on reserve hanger decks? Do I? This is where I run into an issue on this card is you probably should have adjusted the points where it was broken, not because the card was causing problems in interactions.
It depends because it's still any any list that were just small screens with 4 TIE fighters or 4 vultures, or even the Z95s, it's still put in a lot of work. It doesn't need to have those commanders, Grievous or Sloan, to still be a really freaking annoying screen that was actually really cost effective.
It is, but you're
Yeah.
supposed to turn them to activated and move them away from squads. So they're not tying anyone up. Whatever that round is, they're now out of the way. So I don't feel it was as bad unless you have those two commanders.
Yeah, I think it's you're right, but I think reducing the spammability of reserve hanger decks allows you to not have to fuck with those commanders' inherent abilities at all. And you're just kind of pulling back on one aspect of that list composition. I think it's fine.
Fair. Your point is okay, take the broken aspect of the commander away, but leave the basic version of the commander intact. Which I can agree
Yeah.
with.
It's like it's just pulling back on like, okay, maybe you have one less reserve hanger deck. Like you can't fit that
Right.
fourth one in or third one in. And then you don't have to fucking deal with it every goddamn round.
Because the thing that I remember is you had a Grievous fleet that was pretty hard to deal with. It was the two Providences. And
Yes, favorite fucking fleet.
yeah, and so the thing was to get you into the middle of the board where you couldn't use your vultures. And if you missed on that opportunity, then yeah, it was really painful. But if you understood, and again, this gets into what's a negative player experience, and usually it's I haven't seen this, I don't understand how this works. So that's why it's becoming negative. Because if I
Yeah,
understand what you're trying to do, I can work around it.
yeah. And one of those negative player experiences, oh, you're getting your brace back again for the 8th time? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's understandable. I just I debate that one, but at one point is not a lot.
No, I think it's fine though. It's a fine change. Yeah. We'll move on to the fucking we're gonna start getting into the big shit now, the officers. Damage control officer. One of the sleeper hits.
I've been loving this one since I started with MC75 because you got those contains. You might as well use them.
Double contain. Any ship with double contain, you've got to consider this. 5 points to 3. Hallelujah.
So the MC75 got a points adjustment. The interdictor didn't get a points adjustment. It's kind of sad the interdictor didn't, but it's nice that this got a point adjustment so that those two ships can benefit from it. And God knows the interdictor needs some help.
The interdictor does kind of need
Especially the combat one. I don't know why that wasn't touched, but that's the
I think you have to make such drastic changes to make the combat interdictor viable that it's just one of those things of like you just put it off or just don't fuck with it and leave it be. Nobody played it anyway, so who gives a shit?
Fair enough.
But damage control officer. This is one of those changes that I think is almost overall the most significant of 5 to 3, which it doesn't sound like much, but we're going to get to some of these other upgrade cards where it's like they're going to cause big problems and damage control officer is going to be the answer.
Yeah, there's gonna be there's cheaper access to a lot more fancy crits, and I mean we haven't named it yet, but it's XX9s is gonna be floating around as a nice bypass for contains that damage control over stops.
Yeah. And like we're seeing these prime time crit effects being much cheaper. And some ships just have no interaction with being able to reroll dice. Like, I mean, if you have a ship that doesn't have an ion slot and you can't PDIC, you got to consider taking damage control officer. I mean, or you're going to take a fucking APT or an APT.
The downside, of course, is always the trade-offs with it, where damage control officer could be a useless card in certain matchups when you're flying lists, but it's kind of that risk you got to take. Do you tech against people bringing the crazy crits? Is it going to hurt? How bad is it going to hurt you? Versus maybe I want a different officer instead, and it
Yeah.
makes it a tough
And
choice.
before bringing damage control officer, that hurt way more.
Yeah,
When you had a 5-point like officer slot taken up by damage control officer with an effect that doesn't interact with your opponent's fleet at all. But now at 3 points, it's a little better. I mean, it still takes your officer slot, which is brutal, but it won't hurt quite so bad.
yeah, and again with other changes, probably going to be a little more relevant. So I like seeing Damage Control Officer get a nice boost. Again, I think it's a good card, but very niche
I think
use.
damage control officer is going to be critical moving forward.
No, it won't be critical. That's the point. It stops them.
Go stand in the corner. That's your punishment. Holy shit. I can't believe I fucking fell into that one. Oh my fucking god. Support officer. It exists. It's 2 points now. I guess it does
So
something. I've
wait,
never seen
remind
it
me what this
exist.
one does, though.
At the start of the command phase, this is how popular this card is. At the start of the command phase, you may discard this card to discard all of your command dials.
Oh, that's right. There was something that was like skilled first officer, but more.
Yeah, it's 2 points, but it might as well just say, I have an effect. Is it useful? And it's like, maybe if you don't know what you're doing, maybe.
I think the only thing I've seen is when I've gotten sliced twice on a Command 3 ship in the same turn. And I think it was like before and after I revealed the dial. But
Jesus.
still, even that, I don't think the timing works out right. I don't know. Why not just skilled first officer?
You can make this a 0 point officer and it will still not see play.
And I think that's the point, is this needs to be a 1 point, just like skilled first officer. And even then you're not going to do it.
No, this you bring this never. This is a nothing
Yeah.
card. He's reading on his iPad because he's trying to figure out what his job is, and it's actually do nothing.
And this is the caveat to my previous comments on, hey, before you start changing text, let's point balances. Some cards are not fixable, and that's okay. They just
Yeah.
don't see the light of day. You make them 1 point, and if someone to match skill first officer, and hey, if it manages to make someone's list good, thank you for figuring it out at this point.
If you can figure out support officer, like, good on you, but like, it's not me. I'm not gonna take this dog shit off.
The only argument I've heard in favor of things like these, and really it's the whole suite of change your dial commanders, is that as something as sort of a learning aid for new players until they really kind of start understanding, oh, these are the turns I need these dials. But then is it
Oh,
too
like,
much of a crutch? I don't know. Like,
ah, it's fine. We'll move on. Veteran captain. When you reveal a command, discard this card to gain 1 command token of your choice.
I like this
From 3
change.
to 2. Yeah. At 2 points, it's fine. It could be 1 and still be fine.
One, I don't know. I mean, I see value in taking it at 2 points, being able to get that command token on demand without having a larger token infrastructure, or needing to give your opponent tokens by a hundo.
But for 1 turn, at your ship's activation is like, it's fine.
Yeah, it's
One,
not super strong, but he can sneak in there on some of your ships and matter for that one turn. You know,
Going backwards, just because I'm thinking about it more. So you got
Mm.
Relentless sitting at 3 points as a title for the ISD. And
Yeah.
you've got
Is Relentless 3 points?
and you got Support
Hmm.
Officer sitting there at 2. So yeah, I can kind of see a reason why you wouldn't want to go to 1 with that card, but then you have to look at Relentless, and we're starting to get into the point where we're looking at cards that are meant for new players and trying to point them appropriately. So
Yeah.
it's probably not something we really need to address too much.
but Veteran Captain is not one of those ones I consider as the new player card, because this is just
No,
a token off
and
generator card.
Yeah.
and this is one you have to balance with Hondo. So Hondo gives you 2,
Yep.
but you have the loss of, okay, I'm going to give my opponent the other 2. But this one is you get a free one and there's no bad side effects. So at 2 points is about right.
I don't know. That Relentless thing confuses me because if you take Relentless and Support Officer, just don't take Relentless and change your command tiles every round.
No, that's my point. Is you need to not make it so out of whack with relentless.
I guess that's true. Anyway, they're both support officers and nothing. Veteran captain is fine. It's cheaper.
Yeah,
Probably should.
it's competitive more for in terms of competitive for what is competing for slots with other officers. It is. Do you need to sink more points into someone like, let's just say on the rebel side, 'cause I'm used to them more like Ramus, 7 points, getting tokens every turn. Do you need that, or are you okay with a veteran captain and then maybe Comstat or Tantive or something to give one or two other tokens, and you need it for like round 3 or something, and then
Yeah.
you have less points there that you can use on other stuff.
And when you bring that up, I start coming around to your point, which is when you have veteran captain and you have Comsnet and maybe you have Ahsoka and maybe you have these other things, and then it becomes, oh, in one round I can put 3 or 4 tokens on my ship.
Yeah, you kind of need a plan for this guy.
Then it's probably like, yeah, maybe 2 points is enough.
I will say veteran captain works great for the separatists and specifically for trench. You're gonna have a hard sell transport. It's got 2 officer slots. If you need something for that second slot, veteran captain is a great option.
Yeah. So veteran captain, probably fine. You know what's not fine? Fucking expanded launchers. Who decided to fuck with the most juicy card in the game?
I love this.
The prime
Oh, yeah.
rib of Armada expanded launchers. The most expensive card, the Points Fortress's Dream card. 13 points.
With beautiful, beautiful art.
It does have beautiful art, that's true. 13 points, 2 black die on the front hull zone modification. Down to 8. Why? My point fortresses are ruined.
I think this gets to the point that point fortresses are not necessarily the best thing. And I get that some point fortresses are meant to stay on the board, like the Starhawk, but that's an exception, not the rule. If you want to invest a ton of points in a ship, then you're creating a big, fat, juicy target. And if you're not putting something like PDIC on it, then I understand your worries about PDIC, because this is where PDIC gets to be ridiculous, is you get a points fortress. But if you're not worried about that, this card should never have been 13.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. It's 2 black guys on the hull zone. 8 is fine.
In the 1.5 Armada landscape. 10 would have been okay in previous ones, but 1.5, I think 8 points is fine, because if you're going to get a ship in close, do you think you're going to get 2 external racks off? Or do you think it's going to be gone after that point? There are very few ships that are going to stick around for 3.
But that I think is what I love about expanded launchers in comparison to external racks. When you emphasize that point, do you think you can? I mean, if you can get 2 shots, 3 shots, like, you've done it. You've succeeded at the strategy.
Oh, and there's definitely ways to do it. It's just you've invested so many points in keeping your ship on the board 3 turns that did you get what you expected from it?
Yeah, and it used to be something like what? You're comparing it, as probably most people will, to X-Rax. You're investing, 9 more points in the old before these changes to get a second X-Rax after your first one that you've already invested 4 points into. And are you going to blow up first?
Yeah. That was one of the things when external racks came out, because expanded launchers was one of the early ordnance upgrades. Once external racks came out, like, expanded launchers never saw fucking play.
I think this gets into if you're going to invest points and you're going to make yourself a points fortress, let's say you get a Kuat, you get ECM, and you get 7th Fleet, and you get PDIC, and you get all these things. you're already investing so much into making this thing not die that 13 points, okay, now you're starting to get really ridiculous. You've already invested so many points. And it kind of gets into the trench. Hey, I have my Rube Goldberg machine. Now I got to invest all my points into all these token officers. At some point, you need to
Yeah.
balance it out and say, okay, you're spending so much points in order to get this benefit that you don't need it to be 13.
Yeah, I mean, objectively, it being 13 points was fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, I will say, since the points change, it's been pretty fun seeing people just slap this on to everything that can take it. Hasn't
The Gladiators even.
Yeah, well, the Demolisher with expanded launchers is that's nice. I have
Like, you can actually do that and not get weird looks.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, your opponent should be worried if you're bringing that.
Exactly, yeah. Because, like, getting a front arc shot multiple times with Demolisher, you can fucking do that.
Yep. And then you don't have to necessarily turn as hard, which is turning isn't always the best to keep it getting those juicy shots, which would still have red dice for maybe occasional accuracies. Make it hurt even more.
And depending on how you set up that demo shot, you can get in and get out without too much of a problem. So that's where this balance is on a knife's edge. Is 8 points with demo, that's where you're going to get the exploit.
Yeah, you can actually do it now instead of just looking ridiculous. Like, you put 13 points on a fucking Gladiator, you know I'm going to snipe the shit out of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a high priority target.
So speaking of 8 points, let's talk about a card that used to be 8 points, and it never should have been. Rapid Reload.
I never understood this one originally. I now
Terrible.
maybe, but uh,
Modification, which is weird. Battery armaments left and right increased by 1 black die. 4 points now.
So you have to think about the ships that actually have a narrow arc in the front. That's where you take advantage of this. The only ones that I can think of are the small ships like Demo and the MC30, because if you get just right on a large, maybe you can get this off. But you have to be
Raider.
Raider 2, but yeah, well, Raider also, not Raider 2. But but you start to get into this, how accurate do I have to get my ship? And if you can do it, all power to you. Just let the person do it. Don't penalize them with points. So I'm perfectly fine with this adjustment.
It's good that it came down, but it's still just really hard to get use out of it because even if you're trying to line up multiple shots, this isn't like you're just ramming headfirst into them. You got to like keep kind of turning and turning while they're still at close. Even high capacity, what is it? High capacity ion turbines. That's even a little bit hard to sometimes really keep on target. It's definitely much easier than close range, but
Yeah.
actually medium range isn't that much longer than close range, which is weird.
If double arcing with the sides was that much of an issue, then the MC30 should be a lot higher point value, which wasn't part of this adjustment. So it kind of tells you how easy it is to do that.
My point, though, like, if you're taking Rapid Reload to get the double arc on the same ship from your sides, like, if that's your strategy, you don't need Rapid Reload. You're just that good. You're the guy. Rapid Reload is, you're just flexing, like, oh, I got both side shots on the same target.
Right. But
You could have taken anything else. You chose to take this just to show
But
off.
where I'm getting at with this is, how can you exploit this card? And that's the only way you
Yeah.
can exploit this card. Otherwise you're getting 2 dice on 2 consecutive turns, and your ship's probably not lasting past that.
I honestly would make this 2 points, and it would be fine.
Probably.
But it takes 4 points. Like, just take external racks, and then you don't have to pick a hull.
Right.
And it's just better.
Yep, because again, if you're not doing the exploit thing with both side shots like Bernie's talking about, if you want to fly it kind of quote unquote normally and keep getting this off, like it's it's hard to keep turning as you're passing things and still stay at close. Like, you're really ever gonna get the one side having more than one die, like more than once, unless maybe you're passing another ship. So like 2 points, okay, it's like a half an X-Rax thing. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like just take X-Rax and it's better. It's more consistent. It'll do what you need it to, and like rapid reload. It's whatever. It being at 8 points was absolutely criminal. It was the most hilarious fucking thing at 8 points.
Yeah, it needed less.
So I'll say if you're gonna put one ship like a Kuat and kit it out to hell and defend it and get it in the middle of the enemy fleet, then yeah, I could see you doing rapid reload, get more dice on the sides, and you're just firing at anything and everything in sight. Okay, I could see that. But other than that, yeah, I don't see very much for this.
Yeah. Let's go on to support teams. We got 2 of them, but the first one is engineering team. Engineering command gain 1 additional engineering point. Used to be 5 points. Now that I see it at 3, I'm wondering why the fuck it was ever at 5.
It shouldn't have been. It's reduced to a reasonable spot. Let's see where the card goes, but I don't see this in anyone's list.
Yeah, the problem with it is that if you got a support team slot, why not get an effect out of it instead of just the +1 point? Which is I wish I had double support teams, and then I would take engineering team to combo with the other support team.
Fly a Rebel Providence.
Well, okay, that can do it, but
But then you don't want to fly Revel Providence with that fucking weird nonsense. I mean, it is cool on the
You could have just left it at you do not want to fly a Rebel Providence.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you can take it on an interdictor and get like what, fucking 47 engineering points or some nonsense if you want. But all right, you take abandoned mining facility, they pick a different objective, and you move on. So it's 3 points to say I have brought 2 less objective cards for this match, which I think is fair.
Yeah. And as much as I love the Providence in the CIS, I want to make the CIS or Providence work for the Rebels, but that version is just so off that
It just needs so much more.
it's just you're trying to do something with it, and then you're like, okay, now what can I follow up with? And you're limited on options. So the Rube Goldberg machine is just way too out there.
Yeah, that's Rule Machine Central.
now that I'm thinking about this hard a little bit, though, actually, there might be a use case on, I think, what, CR90s have like a support
Dude, I
teams.
just pulled up CR90s, yeah.
Yeah, so that would actually take it to a point where your engineering commands could start doing stuff, taking off cards.
We can actually pull cards off, yeah, without having a token.
Yeah,
No, that's actually a good point.
Yeah, you get into diminishing returns because you're not going to want your CR90 to do an engineering. You want it to nav or confire. Either it's going to die and you want to get everything you can out of it, or it's not going to die because you want to get it the hell out of dodge.
But to be able to pull off one of those gnarly crits that completely ruins your CR90 and lets it get out, like, I mean, they're command 1. So if you do get that,
Or
wait,
to bank an engineering token and to pull 2 shields off aside to another one that had been depleted that was never going to get hit. Like the +1 for engineering can matter, but maybe not, depending on if they're going to explode too quickly.
yeah,
But 3 points, though, is at a point where, it might
you can
be
consider it.
reasonable.
No, you're right, yeah. All right, I think that's pretty good. Let's move on to nav team then. It just, what is it? What changed on nav team? Did anything change? Phrasing clarification, it says on my little sheet here.
If you're thinking about it, it's probably not that good.
Your nav tokens can either change your speed or increase yaw value by 1. All right.
This one is the card that is made for Liberties, I feel like, so they can turn a little bit better.
Just take engine techs.
That's the other. So you pick one or the other. Do you want to turn in harder, or do you want to circle around harder?
It's turning harder or be better. Let's go on to turbo lasers. Fuck.
Or
What a weird
fly the
answer.
Rebel Providence and do both, and then question mark the rest of your strategy.
Yeah. Use Providence, put nav team on it. Question mark.
Question mark
Yeah,
profit.
Profit, yes.
Yeah. Is there even profit? Fuck. Alright, dual turbo laser turrets. From 5 to 4. It's fine. This card needs to be changed. It's just useless.
So this one, really need to talk about with Link Turbo Laser Towers.
Oh my god. It does say Link Turbo Laser Towers. I've been saying Link Turbo Laser Turrets this whole time. Why did I do that?
But yeah, this is now the, I think, main red die re-rolling tech is dual turbo laser turrets.
To be fair, they're towers with turrets.
Alright. No, I'll take what I can get. But yes, I feel like this is the go-to reroll red dice card. But like, it shouldn't exhaust, and if it does, it still needs to be cheaper.
I will counter that with get rid of the modification.
That might be the bigger thing.
Oh, yeah, it being a modification is fucking ridiculous as well. Holy shit. It needs to be like 2 points, no modification, no refresh.
But
Yeah,
again, going back to my original statements,
Yeah, you don't want to change too much.
let's do the points adjustment. Let's see how it plays out. And then if it still isn't seeing the table with the change to LTT, then let's talk about it. But that change to LTT is what really drives this card, not the points adjustment. But now,
I agree.
now LTT doesn't give you that reroll for free for the original factions for the most part.
But I can't see any scenario where I take dual turbo laser turrets over something else like XI7s or enhanced armaments.
Sato with a oh, what the hell is it? The crit guy. Chris, you played it against me recently.
Salvation.
Thank you.
Creek guy. Oh, that. Yeah. I
Like,
actually
you
didn't
take turbo laser reroute circuits.
No, I skimmed on that one and did a weird thing with Ramus for the dial plus token on the Confires. But I mean, I really consider dual turbo laser turrets pretty hard. If I didn't have Ramus, and I would have taken it in that case. And it's pretty much any ship that throws long range red dice and doesn't have really other options for dice fixing. Because otherwise, you're just trusting your red dice to do good work for you, and that sometimes is great, and sometimes it's awful.
Pro tip: never trust the red dice.
Yeah, but this almost feels like part of a whole shift in how powerful red dice are. And again, we're not going to talk about today, but price being another thing being changed that lets you influence your red dice a little less, which feels a little nicer because I don't want all of the firepower to be at the longest range all the time. Okay, so I guess the next one we're going to talk about is Heavy Fire Zone. This is just a weird card. It's the one that lets you change out your flak dice if you're attacking a squad, and I think it has to be, is it engaged or unengaged? Bernie, do you remember? It's so niche.
Oh, let me check. Yeah, it's one of those ones. Sorry, I've got
Yeah, this is not
not engaged. Yeah.
okay.
So this is the one
Right.
that
So
this is the one that doesn't allow you to do, oh, I replace the dice and then I get to do Ruthless Strategist, which would be really ridiculous. Honestly, doesn't matter all that much. You weren't going to do very much with this card unless you had maybe an ISD2 can really take advantage of it because you can swap those two blues out to reds
right.
and really do some interesting things. But there wasn't very much abuse that you could do with this card, so it's justifiable to reduce it.
Yeah, you have to bring a really weird build, and then you kind of have to commit to doing that weird thing, and like I'm not really sure where I ever saw really having a huge place, and now
Yeah.
you're taking up a turbo laser slot that could be more guns. So
I think that's the biggest thing that I disagree with this card is it shouldn't be a turbo laser slot. It needs to be offensive retrofit.
that could be interesting.
But then you have to deal with Link turbo laser towers, and then you're just doing absolute
Yeah.
nonsense.
Yeah, you're moving it to another slot, and now what weird combos can you do? And then how does that compare with everything in the offensive retrofits slot? I
Yeah.
would always go with the points reduction first, then go with the changes, massive changes second.
I think you can do some nonsense shit with this with some of the double turbo laser platforms and go really heavy into slinging your double blues at long, and then okay, well they're both reds now, so you can do double red and then double black with LTT and do some crazy shit.
Yeah, but then LTT has gone down and not as effective. So you're throwing a ton of points at killing squads, which is fine if that's a thing you want to do. You're just now paying more points for specialization.
But the only kinds of ships you can do that on, it's like you're spending that much for that?
And I think that's the point.
Like you're gonna bring a whole Liberty to do that?
Yeah. And that's the point is, well, you want to hyper specialize, you can throw the points at it. Just I don't think you're going to get the benefit.
I will say though, for a card that is really weird and niche, at least it has a weird niche. It's not just entirely a never bring it because there's something better. It does a weird thing. It does something. It exists in the game. If you want to play with it, go ahead.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, going to heavy turbo laser turrets. Went from 6 to 4. When attacking, the brace defense attack effect cannot reduce the damage total by more than 1 unless it is the only defense token spent by the defender during the attack. It's like a weird. It's like XI7's retarded cousin. It's like it wants to be good, but it's just like I hate cards that let my opponent choose whether or not it does anything.
I feel like it mostly matters for maybe salvo ships. I don't know because again, yeah, the other thing you could run would be XI7s to shut down brace redirect. With salvo now, it's like, well, do you care about defending or do you care about shooting me back?
Yeah.
But it's a really weird card, and yeah, I don't know.
We're
I
point
haven't figured it
searching.
out.
We're trying to figure out, hey, when does this card start to get considered and what weird stuff can we do? So I'm okay reducing it, and then let's see what people come up with.
Yeah, I think it being at 6 puts it at direct competition with XI7's, which is also 6.
Yeah,
So, yeah, putting it at 4, you're going to maybe see, oh, I could probably get some extra damage through with this. But in my opinion, find the 2 points and just take XI7's. Don't let your opponent make decisions that completely turns 4 points of your list and a turbo laser slot like off. Like just get the guarantee, find the 2 points. They're there somewhere. So just find them.
Yeah, and some of this might just be post correction when playtesting occurred. So maybe this was really ridiculous with a certain combination, but that got play tested out. So that's why it ended up at this. And now we're just correcting it to where it should be. Always good to just do a small points adjustment, see where a card goes, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah. A nice, good, conservative point. Now I'm gonna fucking rip LTT a new asshole for being such an obnoxiously weird card. This change doesn't help. I still hate it. And I hate it almost even more now. So LTT. Now, this only works for bombard ships. Anybody, how many ships have bombard in the entire fucking game out of all like 60 ships? 5?
Is it 5? Yeah, that's what I was gonna guess.
It's 5. It's both munificence. It's like what, a Venator and an Acclamator and 1 Providence. Not even both Providences, just fucking 1.
I'll be honest with you. When you asked that question, I kept thinking about The Simpsons. Bombardment. No.
Really?
All right. At least one person got it.
It's just I don't watch The Simpsons, which
Eh.
oh well. So now I just look at this card. You can't re-roll like the thing that it does, which is give you consistent red dice re-rolls. It just doesn't do anymore unless you have Bombard, which is a weird tag to associate it with. I think they just picked one.
So one of the problems is this creates a lot of future proofing issues if you want to start going back and assigning tags to ships. So now you have to be very careful when you want to add Bombard. And that's against what AMG said when they were saying that they were going to set up the community for the future.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about LTT is it did way too much for one card. It's re-roll against ships, re-roll against squads, add dice against squads. You are putting way too much into a card for only 7 points. So I understand the reasoning to split it out.
It's a card that should have been like 15 points.
Oh, it was a bunch of cards in one, which shouldn't have really
Yes.
happened. And so now it's okay, let's split it out really. The Clone Wars chips get everything for the most part, because not all of them have Bombard, obviously, but and then the what the hell do we call it? Galactic Civil War, that's the one that gets only part of it, so that we can try and balance it. The card is just a problem. And
The card is
this is where we're going to run into issues in the future is the card is the problem. This may be a card that needs to retire and split.
I would retire this card if I had the choice to. Just retire it, split it up into 2 cards that actually fucking work and feel good. But I will add this. The only reason I'm so upset with this version of the card, this updated version, is that if it was built and there was still more Armada development to come, it would be fine. But there's not. So I know that none of the other Rebel and Empire ships are ever going to get Bombard or any of the keywords. So it doesn't fucking matter.
Well, let's say that there is at least an Imperial ship, so you can take this on the Venator. But I agree with you. Yeah, future development, but you've also kind of
Does the Predator
screwed
even have
future
a turbolaser
development.
slot?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, it
Yeah.
does. Oh, fuck. Shows how much I've run the Venator
And,
Empire.
and that kind of gives the ship kind of new legs, which I like. But you are right. This is a problem for all the other cards, even if you wanted to give them tags, is which ones you give the tags.
Yeah.
Probably the strangest thing about that too, with splitting it up, is like the simplest way is you just let dual turbo laser turrets have the reroll half and keep this one as basically the same card and get rid of the reroll text and just make it for flacking and points adjusted, I guess. I mean, seems like an obvious way to do it.
I would change dual turbo laser turrets and kind of meld it with the reroll portion of LTT, and then take the anti-squadron portion of LTT and mix it with heavy fire zone in some way.
I don't know if it needs to be mixed with heavy fire zone, but I mean, because it's so good, it can be its own standalone card.
True.
Yeah, I mean the how much that can just nuke squads is pretty awesome.
It's insane. But now it's reduced. So like I used to take this on hard sell battle refits, and it was just the most obnoxious combination because you could get rerolls on the ship, and then you could just absolutely dumpster nuke a squadron with an anti-squadron like at the sides or the rear or something. And now like I can't really consider bringing LTTs on hard cells at all because I mean, you just rolling red dice and praying. Good fucking luck.
So I loved LTT with an SSD. You can get, what was it that I got at one point? 7 red dice onto a squad at long range and with rerolls because you can get oh, what the hell, Krennic? Uh yeah, good luck. That squad was nuked off the board.
I remember hearing about what that guy said to his psychiatrist afterwards. It was pretty brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt bad for that.
Fuck. Yeah, that's a good spot for LTTs, but SSDs now don't have fucking Bombard.
And
So
they don't have the price piece, which we'll get into.
yeah. Next one, XX9s. This is a big fucking problem in my opinion.
I love this.
XX
Don't take away my precious.
from 5 to 2 points, any critical effect. First 2 damage cards dealt to the defender by this attack are dealt face up. Holy shit.
This is a pretty hefty price drop too, and it's being able to bypass contains is powerful.
I mean, if it just said your opponent cannot use the contain effect, this would be insane.
Right, but you can get 2 crits off.
You can get 2. So now you can
anything.
combine it with fire control teams and APT, or maybe not APT, but ACM. You know, some other nonsense abilities, and just do absolute brutality to your opponent.
You mean my Liberty with fire control teams and ICB and this card and
yeah, Bernie, that's exactly who I'm fucking talking about when I'm bringing this shit up.
the Tunnel of Doom.
You're the reason I'm saying this XX9 card is such a fucking problem.
And Donna to give me whatever crit I want.
Wonder why I'm bringing Damage Control Officer more recently.
I know, you're taking away all my fun.
This is the reason you bring Damage Control Officer, is for this nonsense.
But yeah, I love this for opening up some other goofy things that can happen. I don't know if it's too much.
This is too much, I think, in my opinion, because it allows lists to completely, like, you can put this on every single ship you have in your fleet, XX9s, and your opponent, like, unless you don't roll a crit, which it's a crit on any color dice.
Yep, it's dangerous.
It's like if it was red only, like I would be like, all right, fine, but any color dice, just put it on every single ship in your fleet, and now your opponent cannot contain.
But okay, take into account the list that I'm bringing it into, where I'm investing heavily into not letting you redirect, getting 2 crits off, the second crit being one that takes away a shield, and having Dodonna to go and take advantage of the 2 crits I give you. That's an awful lot of points I'm investing into a one-trick pony. Where
but that's just your setup.
Yeah, but Bernie, the one-trick pony kicked me in the fucking face, and it hurt a lot.
That is true, but that happens with a large. That's the large hunter. So I get it. I don't. If you start stapling this, so the things we don't want is when you staple something onto every ship, then every ship is equally good. That's not the case for this card. This isn't PDIC territory where I can staple PDIC onto everything and it'll benefit from it. No problem.
It still benefits a moderate number of ships, though, because really, anytime you're able to get a lot of dice on your opponent, let's say with long range, and you can get it on multiple different ships. When their shields are up, they're fine. As soon as those shields come down, crits are devastating. They're game changing. So when you start piling them up, it gets really mean. So it's like that triple munificent list I had with Kraken and XX9s. That was really mean.
Yeah.
But the other thing that can take advantage of is boarding trooper ships or anything that just has a nice big spike of damage where it's like, I'm probably going to get through to your hull. And even if I can't, now I'm forcing you to make harder decisions on what tokens you want to spend because you really want me to let my XX9s go off by letting it go to hull. Like, I don't know. It's definitely strong. At 2 points, it's just so easy to fit in.
This is definitely strong, but you're looking at it as a large hunter. If this is going against smalls, the small is just if you've got that many dice, it's just going to pop. So
That's
Probably.
true.
it's not like PDICs where PDICs, squadrons, ships. Yes, it's got to be close range, but I'm going to take advantage of it. This one, it's mostly going to be larges. So depending on the list you go against, it might be broken. Well, I shouldn't say broken, but it may be a lot really effective or really ineffective.
And again, if they do happen to have damage control officer on their large ship, like you're cooked.
Well, actually, not really necessarily with this one, because
Well, it's only 2 points.
yeah, it's only 2 points. You don't. I see this as a. I don't want to invest heavily in the crits. Like, sure, they're nice, but I also just want to be doing damage, a lot of damage, and this just comes along for the ride as an extra nasty surprise for cheap. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it also might not be. This is one that's is a little hard to tell. I feel like, and we'll see what shakes out. Like it's a big enough change that it's we're not able to quite tell what's going to happen yet.
Yeah. I definitely agree. Let's do the last one for the non-unique or non-faction upgrade cards. Weapons battery techs from 5 to 4. When attacking a ship, change one die face with an accuracy to a face with a crit.
Oh man, this got point cost reduction. I had this one flown under my radar, and that's kind of nice because this is a good card.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Free extra point, and it's handy for certain things, especially those disposable capacitor raiders where you want to get really annoying crits off at long range, or other things that want to do that.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. I actually not sure why. I don't know. I didn't feel like it really needed the points reduction. So
Yes, because again, it wants to be in certain builds and fleet compositions, and when you want it, you take it. And so
yeah,
getting 1 point is it's not like shit. Now I can consider weapons battery techs. It's like you were building around this to begin with. So
you're not gonna have a ton of copies of this, and
1 point. It's I the only thing I can think of to justify the point reduction is other cards have changed. Like, for example, Price has changed, even though we're not going over her changes in this episode. So now she can't force an accuracy. And so now you don't get to kind of string together this weird nonsense combo. But it's fine. It's 1 point. Eh.
So think about what ship could really use this.
well, I already mentioned one. So do you have something else in mind?
Onajura, I think, is what he's talking.
Nope,
No?
a Vic 2.
Vic 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with the title changes.
There
I'm not taking a fucking weapons battery tech on a Victory 2.
you
Gunnery team.
you say that. But this one with a few other cards that we've mentioned and K7s and some that we haven't mentioned, like Dominator, and then
Oh my god.
Intel Officer,
Oh.
Palpatine.
Okay.
You can create a doomsday device that just burns through tokens. This is something when you take all those points reductions in, now you're looking at something that's really scary.
Okay.
Yeah. Still, this one out of all the points reductions is the most least noticeable, but it's every little point counts.
I'm not saying that this is overpowered. I'm saying with this reduction, now I can look at that ship with those upgrades and go, okay, me investing all that points is worth it. What I can take down versus what I can lose, now that's balanced.
But still, the counterpoint is I feel like the reason you're looking at that isn't because of this change, it's because of all those other changes.
And that's not a bad thing though. It's not a bad thing for
No.
value reductions to compound, and now I'm actually looking at combinations, new combinations.
Yeah. It just again it's like I feel very lukewarm about this one. Specifically this one card. But
Yeah.
That's just what it is. The rest of that Dominator setup, though, whew, man, I wanna bring out some Dominators.
Oh yeah.
I ran that card when it was 12. So now that it's at 7, I'm
I
ready
know.
to go.
I love that card when it was 12 still, and if they had reduced the Vic 1 with that, oh my god, you got like a little pocket ISD that you can throw at people. That ship would be
God,
so
it would be so
nice.
good. That's probably why they didn't do it.
They should have anyway, and I understand. You can't make all the points adjustments you want at once because that's just going to lead to unbalance. So glad that they limited to what they did, and we'll see if someone can take the baton and do a measured points adjustment in the future.
Overall, what's y'all's favorite non-faction upgrade card that they've changed? Like, what's your favorite change that they've done right here?
Oh man, so that's so tough based on lists, but I think the one that really starts to open things up and the one that I'm really excited about is expand launchers. Because we talked about demo being a little pocket destroyer that now all of a sudden has a little bit of extra fire it can give. And as much as demo got nerfed, it needed to come back a little bit. But you can also have there are a ton of different ships for different factions that can be a I'm going to sink all my points into this is you can't kill it, and now it's got this extra load behind it that it's going to unveil on you. Like there's some interesting things you can do on expanded launchers.
I mean, I'm looking at the Hammerhead torpedo corvettes right now, and I'm like, you're already cheap as fuck, boy. What if you had 2 more black dice at the front?
Yeah,
Because
that
they
one.
survive a little bit.
No, I see where you're going. I don't think that's the direction, but I think expanded launchers, as significant as the drop is the thing that is going to expand on things the most, pun not intended.
I I think I have to mirror that, but with turbo lasers, just the XX9s and the major point drop in that. Thinking about it for a moment, yeah, that's
I think that's the one that people are going to feel the most as far as gameplay and building fleets is like, what do you do if you go across with XX9s? Like, fuck.
we'll see. I mean, I feel like there's a bit of ambivalence that some other people have played like online games and other stuff with towards that, and I might have to start making other people feel the pressure of the XX9s, supremacy of XX9s.
Yeah. I would have to say mine is probably Nav Team. So that's the show, everyone.
And if you haven't figured out yet, we really like to talk.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's a podcast, so if we didn't really like talking about this shit, it would be kind of fucking boring. But yeah, tell us your thoughts, you lovely listener, on what you think about these neutral upgrade card changes, and anything that like isn't faction locked, like anything that's a neutral upgrade card that you think should have been changed, but like just got passed over. Because I've just written down all of them that changed, and so I didn't actually go through everything and analyze what should have been changed. But that'll be it. So thanks, guys, and see you next time. What are we doing next? We're doing the Rebels and Empire changes.
Oh, I can't get my separatists.
No, Separatists will be after that because they have way more changes than these upgrade cards. So we're probably just gonna
They had the most fun out of everybody.
Yeah.
the Separatists. Yes, that's for sure. All right, that's all.
All right.
See you next time.
Yep.